Hey guys, welcome to the second episode of my basic programming series. In this one, we are going to be talking about a little more complicated programming steps, but nothing too hard. Let's focus right now on what's called the loop. Now, if you're unfamiliar with programming, you probably don't know what a loop is, so let me explain. A loop is just something that repeats anywhere from 1 to infinite times. So right now we can see this loop is repeating infinite times, unlimited. It will go forever until you turn off the robot or it runs out of battery. But loops don't have to go forever. They can do something like, you've seen in my sensor series that you can use the ultrasonic sensor. Well, let's say we want it to repeat until the ultrasonic sensor gets within, we want it to repeat while the ultrasonic sensor is within 50 inches of something. Easy. So let's just check this logic. So this will repeat as long as this is true. So if the ultrasonic sensor detects something that is greater than the threshold value, it will repeat. But let's say you have a drive function that drives forward indefinitely, or something that drives forward for maybe, rotations, drives forward for maybe 10, and then checks to see how close it is to something. And if it's still further than 50 inches away from something, it'll run it again, and then it will check it again, and it will check it again, and this could theoretically go forever. If you're running on a flat plane that goes on forever, it will never ever touch, or you could put your hand in front of it, and it will stop. A little basic thing. This loop can also work for a lot of things. I've showed you the gyro sensor before, so maybe you're checking an angle. I've showed you the touch sensor, so maybe you're doing a touch, and I've showed you the color sensor, so maybe you're checking for a color. Doesn't matter, it's up to your creativity. Next thing is the switch. Now the switch is not as complicated, it's kind of easy, but basically it checks something. So as I've shown you before, it can use a sensor or it can take some sort of logic. Logic we'll cover later, but let's say, again, the ultrasonic sensor, I use it a lot because it's really useful. Let's say if something is less than 50 centimeters away, we want it to do something. But if something is greater than 50 centimeters away, we want it to do something else. So let's say if something is less than 50 centimeters away, we want it to turn to the right, like this. But if it's more than 50 centimeters away, we want it to keep going straight for one rotation. And so you see how this works, that if this is true, that if the thing measured by the ultrasonic sensor is less than the threshold, 50, it will run this check mark, the true thing. And if this is greater than it, it will run the false thing down here. And these are most times put in loops. And so you can stack these as much as you want. Just drag this in here, and boop, now you have an infinite loop that forever checks that if this is less than the threshold, it will run this, and if it's greater, it will run this forever. Now, sometimes you want to break that loop. Let's say that you want to run this forever until you get a true, until you get to within 50, and then you don't want to repeat anymore. Then you can add this loop interrupt, and this will stop the loop from repeating again. It's kind of like a break on the loop. If you add it here too, then the loop will immediately terminate because the switch has to choose one of these, and no matter which one it chooses, it will break the loop. So the loop will only run one time, even though it says infinite. Then I showed you guys the wait function before. Let me delete this. The wait is very useful. You can do it to measure time for something. You can do it for, as I said before, the color sensors I've showed before, the touch sensor, the ultrasonic, and the gyro, as I've said before. These are what's called the logic portion of the programming, and it was the subject of this week's episode. So keep watching and keep creating.